just what does it take to have a constitutional crisis?
This could precipitate a constitutional crisis.
Prompting a constitutional crisis.
A major constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
You could say that the Constitution is something of an owner's manual for taxpayers, and like a lot of owner's manuals, it can lead to a lot of frustration. Among the things the Constitution doesn't have is a precise legal definition of constitutional crisis. And so the phrase constitutional crisis is meant to mean a moment when the Constitution is not enough to resolve a question or a conflict or a confrontation or an uncertainty. And this can happen for several reasons. One, the Constitution is silent on a given subject. For example, the original Constitution didn't say how many times a president could be reelected. But after FDR had been elected to a fourth term, the Constitution was amended to say twice is enough. Two, if the Constitution is ambiguous, it leaves open a question like the original Constitution left open the questions of slavery and secession. Well, that's how we got the Civil War. Three, there can be lively disagreement about what the Constitution's language actually means. The disagreement can be between different branches of the government, say between Congress and the courts, or between one of those two and the president. We saw a dramatic example of this in the Watergate era, when President Nixon fired a special prosecutor who was looking into his re-election campaign. He could do that because the special prosecutor was working in the Justice Department's authority, and that department is part of the executive branch. But then the judicial branch, the court system, stepped in when a judge ruled that the firing of the special prosecutor was illegal. That could have been a constitutional crisis, but the courts persisted, upheld the original ruling all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Congress sided with the courts and began impeachment proceedings. When a confrontation finally arose over the tapes that had been made in the president's Oval Office, the Supreme Court ruled he had to turn them over, and shortly thereafter, President Nixon resigned. Crisis averted. Calming the storm of a constitutional crisis has often required the willingness of the combatants to negotiate peace. The ultimate constitutional crisis would come if one side or the other were unwilling to budge. For now, at NPR, I'm Ron Elving. Thanks for coming to my office hours.